Hey, Nathan, we get a lot of emails,
Yeah.
and most of them are people asking us what vehicle they should buy. But you know the one thing that they always care about?
Good looks, like me.
Yes, they want the best-looking car.
Yeah.
No, my man, the one cross-through line that runs through all these emails is reliability.
Yeah, and reliability is a really funky thing because it certainly goes into, the DNA of a vehicle. And some car makers actually pride themselves on making reliable cars, while other ones won't tell you that because in many cases they just don't make them.
Well, in this podcast, dude, we're going to be talking about the 12 cars that are most likely to go 200,000 miles, according to Consumer Reports. Now, as you know, Nathan, we buy cars and trucks.
Yes.
And we keep them. But because, frankly, you guys out there get bored very quickly,
Yeah.
we don't keep them that long.
I mean, a year, maybe a little bit more in some cases, and usually they're trucks.
Yes.
It's just based on what you guys like. And as such, if we kept something for 5 years or something to really test it in terms of reliability, about 90% of you wouldn't watch those videos anymore.
Now, then, of course, as we like to do, as is our way, we're going to also do the other side of that coin, and that is the top 5 most unreliable cars according to Consumer Reports. Now, unlike us, Consumer Reports actually has hundreds of thousands of people they survey.
Yes.
They buy a lot more cars than we buy.
Yes.
And so, they have much deeper pockets and, frankly, much more expertise in this.
They do in that respect. However, the good news is we've driven every single car on both lists. In addition, some of these vehicles we've actually owned, or we know somebody who has owned them. So we have some expertise in terms of the personal level. And many of you guys out there have asked us very similar questions. For instance, hey, if a car has 100,000 miles on it and I want to buy a used one, which right now is a big deal, can I do it? Well, this first list might actually give you a little bit of insight.
Yeah, and it's a little surprising that there's basically 2 manufacturers on it.
Well, actually, it's not surprising. It's not, because I'm sure you guys can guess which 2 they are. And no, they're not American and they're not German.
No, and actually they're not Korean either.
No, but they're actually, no, there is one American on there. I'm sorry, I stand corrected.
It's funny because there's one American on this list of cars that will go 200,000 miles, and that same vehicle is on the Consumer Reports list of cars
although it's a different type of it.
that are most unreliable.
No, it's a really funny trade-off there. Okay, so before we get into that, I wanted to thank our Patreon subscribers. Guys, thank you so much for backing us up. Without your support, we couldn't be doing what we're doing right now.
Yeah, and if you want to help, maintain this weekly, sometimes bi-weekly podcast, depending on if we have any special episodes, just head on over to patreon.com/TFL car, and help us by donating some money, or just leave us a comment.
Won't you please help maintain Roman's good haircuts, please?
Yes, it's very expensive.
For the follically challenged, making sure that he has it is important to me.
Yeah, you want to be sure to tip your hairdresser
the right amount of money, or else your hair winds up like mine, or lack thereof. Yeah.
Yes, I had a really bad haircut like 6 months ago, and it looked like a mushroom was growing on my head. My wife was like making merciless fun of me, and so was Tommy.
This is when you go bald, you really don't want to go back, even if I could theoretically grow enough hair to make it look decent, because it's so simple and it's consistent, and I like that. And frankly, my wife likes a bald head, so I'm down with that.
So between these 2 lists, I think I've got a little bit of a rant I want to share with you, but let's get down to the ones that will go over 200 miles. And what we'll try to do is we'll kind of talk about our experience with these cars. Number 12, Nathan,
is the Honda Pilot. And the Honda Pilot now recently has had some significant updates, but the sauce is essentially the same. And Honda does build a very reliable V6. And in addition, this vehicle is not perfect. There have been recalls. There have been some issues here and there, but for the most part, it's a damn strong mid-size off-ish road kind of sort of vehicle. And it's just well put together.
I was just driving down the road and I saw the first generation Honda Pilot, and I thought to myself, that's a very handsome car. It's kind of rugged, it's kind of boxy.
They did make it a
Yeah,
box to
yeah.
begin with, and they've maintained that. They went a little squiffy with the front end on their second gen. I didn't like it very much, but their newest one I really like, and so much so that I slept in one for 3 days and took it on a 1,200 or 1,600 mile little round trip. And that video, by the way, I do highly recommend because it's a bit of an adventure video. And yes, I do actually sleep inside of it.
And remember, alltfl.com if you want to see all of our videos in one place, because we do have a lot of outlets that we publish to. The thing about the Pilot is that they've really taken a turn, and I mean, as well as like the Telluride, right? They've taken a turn for the off-roady, and I think that's a good thing.
I think it's a really good thing because, frankly speaking, they're going to have a hard time, especially in the future, going toe-to-toe with Toyota, which they normally do, because Toyota is really hitting it with hybrids. And you may have noticed there haven't been any Honda Pilot hybrids or electric versions or anything like that yet. As such, they took the smart route, which was they had their iVTM4 system, which is one of the best all-wheel drive systems out there.
People don't give enough credit.
No, they really don't, and it's really, really good. It can get you out of a lot of trouble. No, it's not a boulder basher. Can't speak. But it is a very capable vehicle, and one that, at least with the iVTM4 system, is fantastic.
I think the Pilot may be one of those cars that will get posthumously recognized for how good it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, once they've all moved away from like having gas versions of it.
I can't think of it for the life of me. What's the one with the sunroof in the back? It looks like a little bread van that everybody wants now.
The Scion XB?
No, Honda.
Oh, from Honda. Oh, are you talking about not the Equator, the Equinox, the Eclipse?
No, that you're thinking Buicks now.
It starts with an E. Element.
Yeah,
Yes.
The Element. Yeah,
I almost bought one of those for my daughter.
Yeah, that's one of those Hondas that has been posthumously recognized.
It's really cool.
It's really cool, and I think the Pilot, because it's got a reputation of being kind of a minivan substitute.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
But the newest one is actually very incredibly, and I would say surprisingly off-road capable.
If you get the right one.
If you get the right
yeah,
one.
you have to get their.
I mean, it's got a tow hook
Trail
on the
Sport.
front.
It's underneath, but it is there.
Yeah.
It survived our course. It survived Moab. I actually put one underwater like I shouldn't have, and it survived. It survived. Actually, a pretty damn good setup. But the point is that the Honda Pilot, it's been around for a long time. They're considered reliable. They're robust. And in many ways, I think they're overlooked because of the popularity of the Toyota Highlander.
All right, number 11, of course, is another Honda, and this is the Honda Civic.
This is a no-brainer.
Yeah, this is just a car that, except for a couple generations, has gone from strength to strength. What I like about the Civic, and what I like about all Hondas, is that they're just honest cars, except for that little time when they got rid of the volume knob, which they rectified.
But even then, it had that unusual setup with the two screens that nobody else was doing in front of the driver. And I've never thought that the Civic was a downgraded car. Even in the early days, the Civic has been a very strong player. Yes, there have been some that haven't been that impressive in terms of performance, but then they always make up for it with like an SI version or even, the R. But the bottom line is that the Civic in general, as just a day-to-day driver that gives you a lot of reliability, it's right there. It's all baked in.
So out of the Civic model line, I think the sweet spot for me is a Sport with the little turbo I think it's a 1.5, right?
1.5 or 1.4
or 1.6. Anyway, it's a small little turbocharged engine. I think the SI is nice. I think the Type R, of course, is its own thing. It's really much track focused, but the regular Sport is almost perfect.
That had the little, I think it was an optional 6-speed manual transmission. I happen to like the SI a lot. It speaks to me because it's such a it's just no extra filling. You know what I mean? It's fun. It handles extremely well. Paul didn't love it on the track. I think Paul, he really pushes cars hard. He's our Stig, our former Stig. But for me, not being as talented
Our
as
wild race car driver.
He was a wild race car. Anyway, but in terms of me, someone who doesn't have talent, I really loved throwing that thing around the corners and hearing it just zoom away. It was such a fun car to drive. So every version of the Civic has impressed me one way or the other, be it MPG, be it power, be it handling, or surprisingly, even comfort. Some of them are relatively comfortable, not the R, especially the older one.
Ooh, the seat.
Ooh, that seat. But all in all, very reliable car. I've heard nothing but glowing reports about them. However, some people out there may say, well, wait a minute, there's been some oil consumption issues with some of those powertrains. Yes, it exists, but not enough for major recalls. So nonetheless, they've proven to go over 200,000 miles and then some.
All right, the next two on our list are kind of have to go together because they're built basically in the same chassis. And there is a controversy of brewing because of both of these are changing powertrain. So number 10 is the Toyota Tacoma. Number 9 is the Toyota 4Runner. Now, of course, those have V6s currently.
But they're different V6s.
They are. They're older and newer. Both very reliable.
Oh, yeah.
But the controversy of brewing is the new Tacoma is going to go to a 4-cylinder turbo, and we assume that the 4Runner will also go to that same powertrain.
It's a weird thing, isn't it, Roman? I mean, Tommy covered an amazing video. I recommend going to alltfl.com and checking out Tommy's video where he covered the new Land Cruiser. Mm-hmm. Because the Land Cruiser, it's a little tiny bit bigger than the current 4Runner, but not a lot. Yet, it does have a lot of the components that are coming in the new Tacoma. That being a 4-cylinder turbocharged hybrid, right?
Yes.
And now that's one of the engines or powertrains that'll be available in the Tacoma. There's also a regular turbocharged, and I think there's 2 different levels of that as well, like the base model and then like a mid model. Anyway, the 4Runner, nobody knows what's happening with it. There have been some interesting little leaks here and there, but nothing confirmed. But a lot of people are saying that most likely it will also have the same powertrain as the Tacoma and be basically a smaller version of the upcoming Land Cruiser. With that being said, that's a 4-cylinder turbo, possibly a hybrid. 3 things that a lot of people who like reliability are afraid of.
Yeah, and you'll see that with the one American car on this list when I said that it was on both lists.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, the just quick background, the new if you're unaware, the new Tacoma comes out very soon, by the end of the year as a 2024 model, and usually the rolling cadence, right, the way that the manufacturers then unveil the next car is a year later, after the Tacoma, the new 4Runner comes. And so we're expecting it to be a 2025, but we're guessing at that.
Yeah, and remember, in between that, we also have the Land Cruiser, which although we've seen it in person, we haven't actually driven yet. So there's a lot of stuff with that as well.
A lot coming from Toyota.
Yeah, that may actually push the 4Runner back even further, possibly.
Now, it's, remember I said at the beginning of this podcast that we don't keep cars very long. I think the longest vehicle we ever owned was that first generation Raptor.
That one, yeah.
I would say like 3 years, 50,000 miles, something like that.
Yeah, and I think we had our TRX for
a year and a half.
months. Yeah, give or take.
But we can sort of start to look at the Tundra because that came out now almost 2 years ago, and that has a 6-cylinder hybrid or not.
It depends on if you get the TRD Pro.
And initially there were problems with that powertrain.
Yes,
there were. The people out there oftentimes comment on our videos and are wondering, can a turbo, especially a hybrid turbo, be as reliable as, let's say, a straight V6, right? Because there's a lot more moving parts to it, right? We owned for a while the first Civic, no, not the first Civic, the first Honda, what was it? The hybrid. It was the Insight.
That doesn't count, Roman. That thing was so bashed when we got it.
Right, but I'm saying it did have a battery.
Yes.
And we had to replace it at 250,000 miles.
Yeah.
So if that's any indication of how long, and most Priuses that also have the hybrid battery.
Many of them are still running around with their old nickel cad batteries.
They last, once again, about 250,000 miles.
Or more.
But 200,000 miles is a big number.
It is a big number if you and bear in mind that this is referring to the original running gear. I remember a time when you would go 60, 70,000 miles. It's like, got to change that clutch or got to, that transmission. There's certain things that have to go. Those times have passed. There are so many cars now that can go a lot further, and I credit a lot of that to the fact that manufacturing has become far more technically advanced, and vehicles are better made now than they were back then.
Yeah, thanks to the Japanese.
The Japanese and the Koreans pushing the Japanese and forcing them to work even harder. I love it.
All right, we're kind of going way too slowly here because we got a lot of cars to talk about.
We do indeed. The next one is no surprise. It's another Toyota.
Toyota Highlander.
Yeah, the Highlander. Now, recently it's gone through some major changes. Actually, you guys covered that.
Yes.
And that's including a longer version.
The Grand Highlander.
The Grand Highlander. Does that come standard with a hybrid powertrain?
Oh, good question, dude.
I think it might.
It might, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that Toyota is going to be moving and pivoting more towards that direction of making standard hybrid powertrains because they currently do that in their Sienna. The Sienna only comes as a hybrid, and the only change with the powertrain is you can get all-wheel drive or just a standard front-wheel drive.
And there's a Lexus version of that. They're calling it the TX.
Yeah, the TX. Boy, a lot of people are confused about that. That is essentially the Toyota Grand Highlander. Lexified. That's a very good way of putting it. And we'll be driving that pretty soon, I think. I am curious about it.
All right, now number 7 is
another Toyota.
The most built, most popular car in the history of cars.
Yep.
People think it's the Volkswagen. They think it's the Model T. No, it's Toyota Corolla.
Toyota Corolla surpassed them all. The Toyota Corolla is and has been the kind of the poster child of Toyota for longevity and throughout their history. If you look on the roads any given time, you're going to see Toyota Corollas running around with well over 200,000 miles on them, beat to hell, and just keep going. Their simplicity, however, over the past 10 years, and this has happened before, but really it's happening now, there are a bunch of different types of Corollas that exist. I mean, a bunch of different types.
Oh, yeah. They've tried every flavor of Corolla.
You got hybrids, you've got a sedan, you've got a hatchback.
And then you got the GR Corolla.
You got the GR Corolla,
yeah.
Which is one of my favorite cars. It was a big surprise, right?
Yeah. It's funny because, we live in this YouTuber world, and it's kind of split down the middle of whether a lot of people, and maybe because it's availability, a lot of YouTubers all buy and own Type Rs, Civic Type Rs, and the other half either buy or want to buy GR Corollas. And I love to see that kind of rivalry.
Yeah, me too.
Of course, it's not direct because Civic Type R is front-wheel drive, GR Corolla is all-wheel drive, but nevertheless, they occupy kind of the same place in my heart.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see, Nathan, like 10 years from now, which of these two will be considered like the classic. Maybe they'll both be considered the classic.
Well, it's funny because if you look back in time, old WRXs are getting a new lease on life, and people are like, yeah, this is a really good car, and they were. Also, if you really want to be obscure, I mean, the Mazda 323, I think it was the GX or something like that, that had like a turbocharger and all-wheel drive, manual. It was like the predecessor to something like the GR Corolla. And the Corolla itself, as a regular car, because I'm not talking about the GR Corolla for reliability, because I sincerely doubt anybody's going to be able to put 200,000 miles on it without roasting the clutch or destroying it, because those cars are driven hard. However, Toyota, both their regular vehicles and their hybrids have proven to be very reliable and just a popular vehicle. Still one of the best-selling cars that Toyota builds.
I think back to like the most recent hot hatches that have been unveiled and how much excitement there was. Let's start with like the Focus.
Yeah.
Right. What was the top dog Focus?
There was the ST, and then it went up to the what was it called?
Yeah. See,
the all-wheel drive one, RS.
RS.
Yeah.
That has not stood the test of time.
Not real. I mean, within a small community, it has. There's definitely some fans, but compared to the,
certainly not like the STI or the WRX.
No, or actually the former Mitsubishi Evo.
I can't wait for people to get their hands on. Specifically the GR Corolla and like do what they've done, right? When they take that little 3-cylinder
500 horsepower
or more, it'll be crazy. All right, let's keep going. The one American car, truck on this list is what, Nathan?
The Ford F-150.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut to the chase. I'm gonna say it's also on the other list.
Yes,
and we won't tell you which one, but it's also on the other list.
But I think you'll be able to figure it out after I say this. Now, the Ford F-150 comes in several different flavors. And the vehicles that they're referring to, the Ford F-150 they're referring to, goes from the base model V6 non-turbo, also the Coyote 5-liter V8, which is still a very popular option, and then, of course, 3 different versions of their EcoBoost V6.
Yeah.
And they are combined considered a pretty damn reliable truck, which is great. But I did avoid mentioning one in that list. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, so that's a hint.
Yeah, it is a big hint. We've had really good experiences with the F-150s that we've owned, I would say.
Yeah.
For the most part, they've been strong in terms of runners. I can't remember any issues other than like minor, like a mirror being screwed up.
Yeah,
or
never.
like that.
Nothing's ever taken out of all the Raptors and F-150s we've owned. Nothing's ever taken it off the road.
Yeah.
Except for like mine. Like I remember in the last generation Raptor, some of the little like fake. It meant, you know how you have vents.
Yeah.
They put this like. It wasn't chrome because it wasn't chromy, but something similar that is supposed to make it look metal as opposed to plastic, and that started to peel off.
Oh, okay.
So nothing that would like cause you to.
Yeah, and I recall there was like a mirror issue too, on that prior Raptor that we had.
And guys, we're not talking about recalls.
No.
At this point, you can't keep up with the recalls. I personally, Nathan, I've given up trying to.
Well, there's an important point about the recalls. The reason why that you're hearing more about them is because of things like social media, guys like us and some of the other players out there, because they've existed for years and years and years. That the government has been forcing people to do recalls because there's liability here, but you're hearing about it more often because the news gets right to us and gets right to you immediately. There's no 2-3 day lag getting into some newspaper and the 9th page. So keep that in mind. Let's move on though, because after the F-150 is, surprise, another Toyota. The Toyota Sienna is number 5. And it is
That's
no
the minivan,
surprise.
of course,
That is their minivan.
Yeah.
Now, the hybrid 4-cylinder has been around for 3 years, I'm going to say. So that is part of this list. But remember, the Sienna has an unusual history because it was at one point the only van in the United States, minivan, that had all-wheel drive as an option. It had 4-cylinder as an option. It had a V6 as an option.
And
So
did I say, was it mid-engine? Or what was it? What was it?
Oh,
Mid-minivan?
before that was the Previa,
Yeah.
and then the Toyota van before that. Yeah, the Previa was I want to do a whole video on that with
I'd
Tommy.
love to do a Previa.
Previa is such a cool,
I know.
like pseudo-futuristic thing. But the Sienna itself, I got to say, it's not a pretty van. It's just never been a pretty van.
They just delivered it to us.
Yes, we have the
got the new
Timberline or Timberwood.
Woodland.
Sorry.
Woodland.
Something like that.
It's the
Off-roady one.
yeah.
It has a 1-inch lift, yeah.
Yeah,
But there's a couple other things on it that make it unique. And I give Toyota credit for finding ways of like kind of rebaking the old thing to make it a little interesting. They recently redid their all-wheel drive system, which is essentially the very same type of all-wheel drive system the Highlander has, which means front engine, hybrid, and then electric motor powering the rear. And it's much, much better now. So I'm glad the Sienna's on the list. It deserves to be on the list. And everything I've heard about them from people, they drive the crap out of them and they just put a gazillion miles on them and they're strong.
Yep. And the only downside to it is it competes against the Chrysler Town and Country. Is it
Pacifica?
Pacifica, yeah. Sorry, the Pacifica.
Which is not on this list, but I don't know. Stay tuned. It may be somewhere else.
And that one has stow and go.
Yes, it does.
Because the Sienna really doesn't, you got to take the seats out in the back, and it's kind of a pain.
Yeah, well, there's a reason. The third row does fold flat, but the second row can't. And the reason why is because remember, it's a hybrid, and the battery is underneath.
Yeah, but they do this. Does the Town and Country, not Pacifica, does the Pacifica?
No. The Pacifica plug-in hybrid does not have stow and go.
You're right.
Yeah. And so that's the only way they can do it. Now I told Toyota, I actually talked to Swears and I said, put the battery on the roof, brah. I thought it was a great idea. I said, brah. And
Mike Swears is an engineer at Toyota.
Yeah, actually, he's now like the head guardian of all Toyota trucks or something like that.
Something
now.
like that.
He went up and congrats on that, Mike.
Head poobah.
Yeah, but he deservedly so. However, he looked at me sideways, and I think he wanted to say something like, "Are you on something?" But I was trying to figure out a place to put the battery so you could stow the seats, and he's just kind of like, "Dude, I do trucks. Just whatever. Talk to someone else."
So the next one, number 4 on our list, is probably the most hated and yet the most reliable of all Toyotas, and that is, of course, the Prius.
Formerly hated.
Yes, true that, because the new one is
just gorgeous.
Yeah,
I just never thought I would say that. Once again,
I know the world is weird.
Toyota Prius, when it first started in the United States, I should say, was one of the most goofy, unattractive, silly cars.
It was like a silly 4-door sedan.
It was a sedan.
And then they turned into a cockroach.
Yeah, and then they went from there to the cockroach. You owned a cockroach.
And we did own a cockroach.
When I met Roman, real quick side note, he, like the very first real conversation we had, he basically said, "I am telling you that the Toyota Prius is the new Volkswagen Beetle."
Yeah.
That was what you said. That was
That's
like
what I
your
said.
opening statement. And at the time, I'm like, dude, no, you're wrong. You're so wrong. And you know what? As much as I absolutely cannot stand to say it, you're actually right. Look how long it's been around. Look how popular it's been.
Yeah.
And look at the changes it's gone through.
And it's also the most likely car on the highway and roads to have a sticker.
It will most likely have a sticker or two, and it's going to tell you certain things about a certain type of, there's usually some political bent there. But in addition, it's also a very popular vehicle to use if you're doing Uber or Lyft. Although, I got to say, the new one, as gorgeous as it is,
It's not going to be a good Uber.
No, because it's so low
Yeah.
that you're going to have poor schmucks like me trying to get into it and hitting their head, which I did several times getting into the new
The cockroachy
Prius.
one was, so I drove that to an Ironman I did with a buddy of mine.
Yeah.
And we put the rear seats down and put two bikes without taking the front wheel off of it, just laid it across, put a blanket on one, laid the other one across, closed it, put all the other gear we need for a triathlon, which is a lot, and we're perfectly comfortable.
I'd say that was like a 2011, 2014.
Yeah.
In that realm.
It was not the fastest car. It was pretty.
Didn't handle very well either, frankly.
I put some snow tires on it. It didn't help. It was still pretty crap in the snow. But now there's an all-wheel drive version.
There's been an all-wheel drive version too.
Yeah.
Actually, they were very smart to do that. Once again, very similar type of idea in terms of the Sienna and the Highlander.
Only Toyota would do like a four-wheel drive Prius where the rear wheels are not connected to the front wheels, and they only like push the car up to like 25 miles an hour, right?
Well,
it's such a technical.
It only made 7 horsepower back in the day. The newer one is much more powerful.
It had one use case, and that's to get you unstuck.
But that is perfectly fine, because most people who are driving a Toyota Prius are not going to be like bounding around in the snow trying to look for deep drifts to go into. So getting out of a nasty situation, that's exactly what all-wheel drive and something like this is for. And I say, well done.
All right, number 3, Honda CR-V.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? The RAV4 is on this list. So Honda has
that is interesting.
Out-reliabilitied. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, out-relied. It's probably, I mean, we did the top 12. It's probably number 13 or something like that.
Could be,
I'm sure it's just off the list. And I'm guessing one of the reasons why is because there are so many different versions of the RAV4. You have the hybrid, you have the
Adventure,
Prime, you have, whereas in the CR-V, there's really just a couple different types, right? And I've recently driven the hybrid version of it. I gotta say, I'm usually pretty impressed with Hondas. I wasn't thrilled with the CR-V. It's okay, but whatever. It was a meh vehicle.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. They knew their competition, yet they didn't rise up to them.
It's like it's a placeholder.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I don't think they moved the bar very much in terms of anything.
But they're reliable, and they handle okay. They're comfortable.
Or maybe it's just conservative. Maybe the way you keep stuff reliable is you don't move the bar.
Yeah,
right. Because any new technology is going to cause issues, right? Especially until you completely sorted. And so maybe the way you keep this thing, being the white bread of the car world, which it is. Let's face it.
It's their best seller. It's Honda's best seller.
Yeah, and when they sell a lot, they don't mess with it a lot.
No, and in addition, they don't sell to fleets. Although there's a big argument about the whole fleet idea, but they really don't. They don't. They don't point out fleets, whereas in other ones,
So we're always looking for the spicy meatball.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's my rant. We'll get to that in a second.
Okay. Well, we got 2 more to go. Okay. The next one's also a Honda.
Okay.
No surprise here, and I'm very proud of this car, and I'll give you a reason why in a minute. The Honda Accord. Just a damn good car, and it's been a damn good car since its inception. In the future, we're hopefully going to have an opportunity to have some really good looks at the older Accords leading up to the new one. But the Honda Accord has managed to put together a very reliable vehicle that is extremely fuel efficient, yet handles well and is comfortable. I mean, it really is kind of everything you want in a vehicle. There are a couple things it's missing, though.
Oh, like a manual.
Yes, thank you, a manual. But also, it doesn't have an all-wheel drive option.
That's true, and it's also missing not having a CVT.
Yeah, although they drive really good. They really do. Even the new one that you drove, you got to admit, it drove quite well.
It does. It does
and
a good
its
job.
hybrid is so efficient.
Yeah. It's like 47 or 48. Right. Once upon a time, that was Prius territory. Now you've got a full size. Well, it's close to.
It's a damn
mid-size
big
sedan.
car.
Yeah.
My new nephew and my niece, they bought one about a year ago. Actually, at the very end of COVID, and they have put a lot of miles on it, and they absolutely adore it. And they live in Los Angeles, and it is like the perfect environment for that car. They fill it up once a month, even though they put on 400 or 500 miles on it a month. So, kudos to them. They're happy with it. Honda Accord is also one of those vehicles that has sprouted other versions of it that have not been successful.
We never got the estate.
No,
wagon.
We sort of did.
Way back in the day.
Cross country, cross
tour.
But
that was
terrible.
Well, we did have a wagon, but this was back when I was a kid, dude.
Oh, God, yeah, way back.
But not in recent time.
When you were a young adult, come on. Okay.
All right, and number one, of course, has got to be
Toyota Camry.
Of course.
Toyota Camry is just a damn good car. If you were asking me to choose between the two of them, between the Accord and the Camry, it would be a tough choice. The only reason I would choose the Camry is for people who live in Colorado because it does have an all-wheel drive version, and it's a solid all-wheel drive system.
And there's a performance version of it, or dare I say, a spicy version, which is my rant.
The TRD version of it, which it's one of the few cars that is available in its class that still has a V6. Almost nobody else, that's including Hyundai and Kia, nobody else has a V6 in that realm, I believe. And so the Camry still has that as an option. Obviously, you can get a hybrid as an option, and you can get this 4-cylinder all-wheel drive version, which is a decent car. It's actually nice. It's just not fast.
Yes. All right. All right. So can I get to my quick?
Yes. Go for it.
This is what I hate. Okay. I hate when a word becomes cool, and if you don't use it, you're not one of the cool kids, and so now everybody starts using it. And I'll give you two of those words. Right.
Fresh.
No.
Fly.
No. Spicy. So now spicy has become the go-to word when you're talking about like the more performance-oriented version of any vehicle.
Oh, that's a shame that people are.
And I don't mind spicy. Spicy's good, right?
Yeah.
But now everything is spicy, and it's not just cars. It's like anything can be spicy. Hey, Nathan, that's a spicy Suzuki hat you're wearing.
Yes, it is, and my love life's spicy too. Yeah.
So you know what I mean? It becomes it's cool when you first say it. Another word like that I hated because of the same reason was whip. For a while, because of like rap, right?
Yeah.
Every car became a whip, and then old guys like us try to use that word, and it just comes across as lame.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I say whip all the time. Whip me more. Whip. And for people are like, well, that's lame. But in addition, there's a lot of other. I mean,
there's another one like that too.
Yeah, hoopty for a while. Thank God that went away.
But the other one now that like when we say it, it just is lame, right? Because like when young people say it, then it's like they're cool, and that's where it came from. When old dudes like us say, and that is of course flex or flexing instead of showing off, right?
Yeah,
that's another one where like it's become so overused that it becomes just cringy.
Yeah, well, but that's always the case, and some stuff is coming back. I mean, from my youth, rad is coming back. What? Rad is coming back? So I challenge you all: start using fresh. Remember fresh? Use tubular. Huh? Use turbo. People used to say turbo for something that's cool.
I don't mind the word. I like spicy, but it's just so overused now, right? And it's like people use it on purpose to show off that they're kind of the cool people in town.
Did Tommy say spicy recently?
No. Okay, I listen to a lot of podcasts. Okay. And my generation, well, okay, you're not going to say it's my generation, but we'd be like, that's a spicy meatball, right?
Yeah.
That was kind of the way you would use it. Like, hey, the new Type R is a spicy meatball, but now it's just spicy.
Yeah, well, we're going to do our best to try to avoid that. I like using terms that make people cringe just because I bring up the past.
Oh, I know a word that makes everybody cringe, but I won't use it.
I've got plenty of words that make people cringe, but I'm not allowed to use it. So there's a big difference. We're trying to be a family show here. So I would agree with you. That is definitely something that is on the forefront of my mind all the time because I own 2 teenagers.
You do own 2 teenagers.
I do. And one is in college and one is in high school. And Lord have mercy, when I hear some of the stuff that comes out of their mouths, fortunately, my daughter is at the point where she's educated enough to go, That term is being used by an awful lot of people. As such, I shouldn't use it because I don't want to act like I'm like them. I want to be an individual, showing that I'm intellectual. That's always the second year of college because they're always smarter than everybody else. But my son is in high school, and he's online, so he has the headphones, and I have to hear him yelling across the house. And oh my God, I hear some stuff out. I'm like, dude, you don't know what that word means. And I really do sometimes have to intervene. Okay,
All right,
let's
so,
get to the
top 15 most unreliable.
Now, on
whips.
this list,
Whips, the most unreliable whips, Nathan.
whips, hoopties.
You know where you know where whips came from? It was like when cars were first coming onto the world.
And then so like you'd whip a horse and.
I think it was like the steering wheel was like the whip, right? So you would drive.
Didn't you guys call it tiller back in your day? No, okay.
Well, the wheel had just been invented, Nathan. So
I just wanted to make sure that I was on the right. Yeah. So now, before we get to this, this is Consumer Reports once again.
Yep.
And thank you guys for putting together this list. And there was 15 on this list, everything from a Jeep Gladiator to Chevy Bolt and whatnot. But we are only going to go on the top 5 on this one. And it's actually an interesting mix.
We can do all 15.
You want to do all 15?
No, we
okay, we got to blow through it kind of quick, though.
Hey, at TFL, we do not short shrift. We go full octane here. So we've got all 15 here.
Oh, you said octane. That's another one that everybody overuses, my friend.
Yeah, so we have all 15. And once again, most unreliable Consumer Reports, and we also actually have. It's either based on the amount of money over a 10-year period to maintain, or the number of recalls.
Yes, and to be fair, some recalls. I'll give you an example. My car has another recall on it. But it's for the little strips that are used near the windshield strip. So stuff like that, it's like, that's not the reliability of the car. That's just a little factory issue with glue.
You take care of it when you bring it in.
Right. So, just keep that part in mind. Keep an open mind.
Don't worry about that. I got the list
Okay, I only got the 7 here. Okay.
Yeah, here you go.
All right, thank you. So
you got all 15.
Oh, it's a two-sided. God, we're saving paper by actually going two-sided on everything. I'm sorry, guys. Anyway, so let's go on to it. And the first one, big surprise here.
Jeep Wrangler. Yes. Cost of maintenance over 10 years. This is a big number, Nathan. $10,397 according to Consumer Reports with, get this, 5 recalls.
Yeah, and there's a funny part about that.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter. The Jeep Wrangler guys just don't care. Because that number right there, 10,397, I guarantee you it's double in terms of the amount of stuff they put onto the Jeep. Tires, suspension, wheels, extra armor, special tops and everything else.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't. They don't care. And I don't know if they'll be able to maintain that recipe in the future. It really depends on the direction that the Wrangler goes in the near future. The next one on the list, though, is not a surprise.
And it has the highest 10-year maintenance out of this entire list. It's a staggering number. Tell us what it is, Nathan.
It is the Mercedes-Benz GLE Coupe, or Coupe.
14,738 maintenance with 1 recall, at least recently. How many of these did they sell, pray tell?
17, or maybe 18.
Exactly. I mean, it's like
worldwide, probably quite a few, but in the United States, they're not exactly what I call a popular vehicle. Although the GL series and whatnot do all right for Mercedes in the United States, to be fair. But the GLE Coupe, for some reason, is remarkably expensive to maintain. And with only 1 recall and that huge price on top of it, and the fact that their resale value is about the worst.
I think these are critical recalls that they're also. I'm not 100% certain.
Well, I think what happens is the navigation stops speaking German and then it goes directly to something like Swahili. And then you're like, oh, well, I got to return. I don't know. I don't know what that particular recall is for. But regardless, the cost of that vehicle is astronomical.
Number 13, once again, not much of a surprise. The Jeep Gladiator, $11,803 on a 10-year maintenance
which is, I believe, the second highest on this list. It
is the second highest, yeah.
Yes, it is. And once again, at least for the owners, they don't care. They don't. I mean, the Gladiator, now, it's not uber popular.
And for those of you who don't know, that's the Wrangler-based pickup truck.
Yeah, or a pickup truck that's sort of like a Wrangler. And it's had its own issues, especially its first year. But they worked out a lot of the bugs, I believe. Now, I'm not 100% sure, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but there were some critical issues that had sprung up with both the clutch, with the 6-speed manual, And then in addition, there was also some issues with the turbo diesel version of this.
Well, so here's the thing, okay? The Pentastar that's in both of these Jeeps, right? I think is dead reliable. I think
It is a really reliable engine.
I think that's going to go down.
There
in
are
history.
some issues from time to time, but it's one of their best that they've built.
I think it's going to go, like I say, down in history as being like that 4-liter straight six that Jeep put into the previous generations. So I don't think it's an engine thing, but in the Wrangler specifically, that little 4-cylinder turbo is problematic. And this is word of mouth and talking to people I know. The 4xe also has issues.
Yes,
and there's no 4xe Gladiator. I think it's coming, but I think the Wrangler 4xe, because it's such a complicated powertrain.
It is complex, although I hear they're working out the bugs. This is directly from Jeep, actually. They're working out the bugs, and they become much more reliable. But anyway, over the 10-year period, $11,803, one recall. And once again, Jeep Gladiator owners are very similar to Wrangler owners. They bought the vehicle specifically because they want something they can beef up and play with.
All right, number 12 on our list is a surprise. Chevy Silverado 1500, GMC Sierra 1500, $10,003 over 10 years to maintain, one recall. Yeah, that's a surprise. Silverado, like a rock, Nathan.
It is like
until
a rock.
It breaks.
Yeah, and we have a particular staff member here.
Yeah, he has some issues with there's the
8-speed
transmission,
yes.
which I think is the culprit here.
They say that they've addressed all the issues and it's a much better 8-speed now, but there have been, and I've received reports directly from you guys, that there are a lot of inconsistencies with the 8-speed transmissions.
I'd go with the 10-speed that they jointly developed
Hell
with
yeah.
Ford.
Yeah. It's more efficient, and in addition, it seems to be more reliable. Alex, our guy, had an issue with his. Let's move on to another Chevy product.
Yeah, this one we know all too well. The Chevy Bolt. They have no amount of money, because there is no amount of money you really need to maintain it, because it's the all-electric version.
Yeah.
But there was a recall which basically said park it outside because it may start on fire and burn your house down.
And burn your house down and chase your children down and kill them too.
And that was those little what do they call it on a battery? That they couldn't. The batteries were LG, and then of course GM blamed LG and LG blamed GM.
Yeah.
And there was a lawsuit.
Panasonic laughed.
Yeah. And some of the batteries had the little terminals at the end would be improperly connected or improperly touching, which would potentially start a fire.
Right.
Which would potentially burn
there
your house
were
down.
reports of a couple fires, no loss of life as far as I know. But the bottom line is that they did address the issue. They did fix the vehicle. However, when they brought it back out, they had a disclaimer. If you wanted to buy the vehicle and get this discount, not a federal tax credit, by the way, at the time, but a discount through Chevrolet, you had to sign this thing, which basically said, I will not sue you if this thing burns.
Well, they basically replaced all the battery packs in all the affected cars. That was
Right.
very expensive.
It was extremely expensive.
Yeah.
But they still managed to maintain a very inexpensive vehicle. Look, as far as I know, we had a very good experience with the one we had.
Yeah, we just sold our Bolt. We bought a 2022, which is a new body style, the
Yeah.
new generation, and we had exactly zero issues with it.
Not only that, but it proved to be a better vehicle than advertised. It did.
Yeah,
It got better mileage than expected.
It was. Look, we did a comparison test.
Drove
Check it
the
out.
crap out of it.
Yeah, we did a comparison test against the EV6, the Tesla Model 3,
The Volvo
which you drove.
XC40, yeah,
and
Recharge.
we didn't quite finish it because we ran out of time, but I think it would have had the most distance out of all of those.
I think so.
Definitely the most energy efficient.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely probably the most usable in terms of just the packaging of it. I think it's just a wonderful car. It's
Super inexpensive for what it is.
Yeah, we bought it for $28,000, I think, or $29,000. I don't recall now. And we sold it for $25,000 8 months later, which
And that's not counting the rebates that you are.
that's not counting the rebates.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was the most surprising car of the year for me.
I would agree. And I don't like the way it looks, but I really do like the way it drives and the tech. And here's the good news. They were going to get rid of it, but they're going to bring it back. But they say they're going to put the Ultium in it. And I think that GM has had enough pushback and enough negative press to say, maybe we should start thinking about the people who cannot afford a $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 vehicle. So
Yeah, I would say the Bolt would be like on my top 10 cars to buy.
it's weird that it's on this list with just one recall, though, considering
the recall was pretty, new
it was
battery
pretty
pack.
extreme. Okay, fair enough. Next one on our list is not a Chevy. It is a Ford, and it's the Ford Explorer. And over the course of 10 years, $9,017 for maintenance and 3 recalls. And I'm really surprised at the Ford Explorer. It used to be like their rock.
Yeah, this
You know what I mean?
generation, they had a problem. It was late.
Yes.
They couldn't build it.
Yes.
They've just had all kinds of teething issues. I mean, I think, who was the previous CEO of Ford?
You mean the guy who was building cabinets?
Yeah, I think he lost. That may have been like the straw that broke the camel's back, and that Farley took over, or maybe I don't know. Maybe he retired, but anyway, it was not like for the car that defines Ford or has defined Ford in the past. They have not had a good rollout on the latest generation Explorer, and I think the sales show and it being on this list is also an indication.
You know what else is an indication? I'm not even trying to be nasty about it, but I could easily go into a rant. We haven't received one of those in a very long time, including their Timberland.
The last one I saw was at the auto show like 2 years ago.
Yeah. And it's indicative of Ford saying, maybe we not send this vehicle out because it does have some issues. Look, I'm not saying it's a bad vehicle per se, but for a Ford product that has shown some real issues and inconsistencies.
And Nathan, it's a bad time for them to show issues.
Yes, agreed.
Because they've got so much competition, especially from the Koreans now, with the Telluride and Palisade twins.
And the new Santa Fe.
It's
absolutely going to eat their lunch. Yeah.
You just were there for that.
Yeah.
It's boxy, and now they've kind of gone down the Ford road. It's one of the rare, like a hit and a miss for Ford, right? Because they've been like knocking out of the ballpark with the Maverick, with the Bronco.
Oh, the F-150 has been selling like. And
then this one, they just went, woof, where did the ball go?
I'm hoping that Ford kind of just does a reset. But now there is an electric Explorer overseas. Another odd thing that it's not available here.
It also got pushed back.
Oh, did it really?
It just got pushed back. Yeah, the news. Yeah, it just got pushed back.
There it goes.
By 6 months, I think they said that they blamed upcoming legislation.
Okay.
So they pushed it back. All right.
I'm not even going to go there. Next one is finally not an American automaker.
It's a Japanese, yeah.
Yeah, Nissan Sentra. This actually really surprises me, although I do have a theory about this. 10-year maintenance cost $5,441. That is a lot of money for a vehicle that is not very expensive. 0 recalls, however. And that is, I know you're going to say, well, what about that Jatco CVT, continuously variable transmission? That's got to be the culprit. No, no recalls. And the thing is that they've actually fixed a lot of those problems with the CVTs, which used to be crap, and now they're much better. However, this type of maintenance cost over 10 years is extraordinary for a car that costs, in average, about $25,000.
I'd love to see that compared to some of the Koreans, or maybe some of the Japanese competitors.
Yep, they're not really directly competitive.
Not directly. Anyway, yeah. So it's weird because they've been building it forever. It's not like it's new. The one thing, maybe not the one thing, but certainly the main thing that Nissan brings to the table, their core virtue, let's say, is reliability
and
affordability. And so this one of those is gone.
Yeah, agreed. And in addition, keep in mind that this goes directly against the Toyota Corolla. And the Nissan Sentra is still a very, very good seller for Nissan. That's why they're still building them. Yet the Corolla outpaces it in almost every way, including reliability. And in addition, it is not as expensive in general to run a Toyota Corolla. So Nissan needs to get on top of this. But Nissan, they're on this list in some other spots too. Let's move on to yet another Ford product.
Yeah, the Lincoln Aviator. And I'll be honest, I don't have a lot. I drove it once. I don't have a lot of experience with the Aviator. $11,691, 10-year maintenance cost, 4 recalls.
That's the third highest on this list.
Yeah,
and that's a lot of recalls, man.
It's the whole brand right now.
Yep.
For a while there, I thought that Lincoln had its mojo back on. And right now, I mean, the only Lincoln that I would...
Navigator.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the Navigator's the only thing that sells with them, really sells.
Yeah, I think that's the one I could recommend. All their kind of, cloned versions of other Ford products.
Canadian cousin of mine had a problem with their Aviator and got rid of it. Yeah. And was furious. I don't know exactly what went down because I didn't want to know, but
yeah, you don't want to have that conversation.
No. When you're in this trade, you try to avoid these things because then you get roped in.
I think it's worth repeating because we get this email a lot, so I'm going to repeat this again.
Yeah.
People, have really bad experiences, and we are kind of, your advocate when it comes to the manufacturers. But there's a little disconnect that we should talk about. So people have a bad experience, and they're like, "Can you please give us the name of somebody?"
I can't do that.
At Ford that could help us, and we know the PR team, and that's not their job. and it wouldn't help you.
No,
right there.
I can guarantee the PR team would say, "Hey, I'm really sorry to hear that." And there's
and
nothing
go to
else
your local dealer.
Yeah, they won't move your email to the right channel, so to speak, or anything like that. And even though we do know people who build these vehicles, we talk to them as well. Talking to them directly won't do you any good. And normally they'll just kick out your email and erase it and delete it and block you. So yeah, we're not able to do that, but we are able to take your complaints and we can do exactly what we're doing now, talk about these vehicles and talk about your perspective.
Or when we meet with sometimes the engineers, right?
We talk about what you guys think.
But think, like, let's say, we know, we have not, we shouldn't say we know, but we have relationships with some of the engineers that engineer these vehicles, like Swears, right?
Yeah, it's a good example.
Yeah. And so let's say you have a problem with your Toyota and you think to yourself, well, I'll go to TFL and then they can take my problem to Mike Swears. Think about what an awkward position that would put us in.
Yeah.
Right? Because Mike would be like, guys, love to talk to you, but hangs up the phone, right? Because first and foremost, he is so far up in the company that he's looking at spreadsheets.
Yeah, and he's trying to keep, he's basically like a general, and he's trying to keep his men doing what they're supposed to be doing on task and taking care of logistics.
And for us to maintain that professional relationship, there's an understanding that this is not the right place for that problem.
But with that being said, we also go to events. And if you guys do just happen to mention, hey, I've had a really bad luck with this vehicle. This is what my problems have been.
Then we'll mention it to them.
We certainly will, especially
be specific to somebody.
Yeah. Hey, Todd over in Greenboro said that his vehicle is having some real problems with the unusual smell, and we think that we're going to report on this unless you do something about it. That doesn't work like that.
No,
it doesn't work that way. Sorry. However, if a lot of you guys are complaining about the exact same thing, then we're like, there's like 50 people who've told us the same damn problem.
And then also, let's also like put our cards on the table, right?
Yeah.
Before social media, when somebody had a problem with their vehicle, the only recourse they had was to tell their friends,
or perhaps get legal representation.
But now people, or legal, or go to the dealership. Yeah. Now people understand that you can create a lot of like buzz by promoting this. And the problem that also you end up having is that a lot of the time that problem is replicated, but a lot of that is also a small problem that then turns into a tempest in a teapot, and it's hard for us to figure out which one of those two it is. Yeah, so like the forums are just full, right?
Yes,
full of like people who are very angry about an issue and trying to get other people to be angry about it.
In addition, we also know, and I know this from personal experience, there's a lot of people out there for some reason or another who hate a brand. It's like a sports team or politics or religion.
I think that's a great analogy. It's like you hate the Green Bay Packers.
Right, which I don't completely hate them. But the point is, I do. The point is that, if I'm going to go and talk trash, I'm not going to talk trash about my favorite team, no matter how much they've let me down. No, the Steelers are great. But those Green Bay Packers or, those New York Jets, something about them really angers me. So if I'm on social media, I'm going to be talking about them in a nasty way. Well, guess what? There are a lot of people out there who maybe their mother had a problem with a car or whatever, and suddenly they exaggerate a little bit about their vehicle, and then it goes a little further. At the end of the day, I've seen so many people who have utter hate for various brands, and it's really easy to find them too, because they tend to repeat themselves or they come up with fake other identities, and are like, oh yes, I agree with you, and then their other identities yes, you are so right.
I hope you guys can see it's a quagmire.
It is, and we can't go and process every single story.
And our job is, to report the news, to review cars.
Yeah, we're not really supposed to report to the builders. We're supposed to report to you about the builders.
Yeah, and then it just takes us into a whole different. It's basically like a consumer. What you're looking for is consumer reports, right? This is why we're
exactly what they do.
This is what they do. They survey, hundreds of thousands of their members, and then you come up with this list, and now you can say, well, these 15 cars are probably something I don't want to purchase, right?
Yeah,
that's kind of the best we can do. All right, let's keep going down this list.
Well, speaking of ire and issues, the Hyundai Kona Electric.
Ooh, that's interesting. $7,871 over 10 years. Zero recalls, but an electric car.
Has it been around for 10 years? I guess maybe that's projected. Maybe it has been 10 years.
Has it? As a California compliance car?
Maybe a California compliance car. So the early ones were crap.
Yeah.
That I remember.
Yeah.
But the later ones were really good, I thought. Anyway, zero recalls. and I'm not going to go back onto the rant that we just kind of went through, but Hyundai gets a lot of hate because there were recalls that have been recalls and are recalls about certain things with fire risk, and everybody's like, "Oh, your car's gonna explode on the road, bro. It's the worst car ever." I heard. So because they're trying to keep the public safe, if there is a report of an issue, then that can strike a recall. And even if there's no fire, if there's a potential for that, they still want to avoid that risk. So keep that in mind when you guys are like out there lambasting an automaker. The next one on our list, and this is the one we referred to earlier,
Ford F-150
hybrid.
Exactly, the one Andre had. He actually had no issues with his.
Andre loved his.
yeah.
He actually was really hesitant getting rid of it, and now I think he's even more so. I think he's really regretting it. But
It had cruise control. Oh, too early?
yeah, jeez, you said it. Oh my God.
No, I think he likes the Colorado.
He likes the Colorado,
I
but
think-
there's
I
been a
think-
lot of issues with it, and the fact that it's not on here is surprising.
You know what else is not on here? Tesla. That's also surprising because we.
Although there's a side note on Tesla. I'll get to you in a second. Ford F-150 hybrid, $10,245 in terms of 10-year maintenance. Once again, the hybrid has not been around for 10 years. It's been around for what, 3?
0 recalls.
Yeah. So I think that's projected.
Yeah, extrapolated. You can extrapolate.
I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time with this one. However, I'm guessing that what CR did is that they took the current ones that have had some issues and put it on this list because already they've accrued a lot of money in maintenance. And I don't know what that maintenance issue is. Andre had no maintenance issues with his.
So what's the sidebar on the Tesla?
So the sidebar on the Tesla is that CR and a lot of other publications out there do not get access to many of the numbers, and they do not have a PR group that's out there putting out much information. So it's very difficult to extrapolate that information. In addition,
Well, they have Musk on now X.
Yes.
It's all you need. You don't. Why do you
X, formerly Twitter, they still call it
What
that.
is it with him and X? SpaceX.
Oh, he
the
loves
Model
that.
X. What? Yeah, I know.
Didn't he date someone who was an X?
I think he has like some X like Canadian.
One of his kids has an X. in his
Yeah,
name,
what
too.
is it with X? God.
Well, he's an ex South African. He was.
Yeah, there you go, yeah.
So maybe he likes being ex. Anyway, regardless of that, no, the Tesla fanboys, and I'm talking directly to you now. Many of you will not report a lot of issues with the vehicle because you love the vehicle. We own one. It's a great car. Blah blah blah. However, it's not perfect.
I was just driving it. It squeaks.
It does. It squeaks and rattles a little bit. My brother-in-law's is having some of the glue in the back. You can still see the glue.
Yeah, and our last Model Y, we had to have we had to replace the lock on the back driver's
Like
side
3
door.
times?
Yeah, it didn't line up with the little striker.
Right.
And
But it was like several times we had to do this.
and what would happen is it would close, but then it wouldn't open.
Right.
Which is problematic.
But because of the way they do their maintenance, because of the way that the fanboys do and do not report things, it's very difficult for them to get accurate numbers. And I know a lot of people in the media, I'm talking about people like me, who try to get information, and it's trying to extract water from a
I
stone.
just want to do a little correction here. In the last podcast that we published, I was talking about the report that Tesla has been inflating their range numbers, and there was an algorithm that was changing how far. And I kind of forgot, and I apologize. So there's a correction here to say that it was according to published reports. It was not a fact. There might be a lawsuit, but it was. I think it was Reuters that came out with that story. So according to published reports, there was a team of people that would actually quelch investigations. But the important part there is according to. So it's not a fact.
Reuters tends to be pretty accurate. I'm just going to say that.
But I just want to be upfront.
Yeah,
I don't want to
absolutely.
make it like a fact.
Smart man.
Okay.
Let's move on to the next one. So we put it, the hybrid thing is a bit of a question mark. So maybe we'll come back to that some other time
what's
in
number
another
5?
podcast. The Hyundai Elantra, 5,880 buckaroos for 10 years of maintenance and 1 recall. Now, the Hyundai Elantra is one of those vehicles that has a few different versions. There is a hybrid version. There's also an N version. And, of course, there's, the regular version. And there was, I think, a Sport, too, for a little while. Pretty decent car, but that much money over the course of 10 years, that's actually on the cheap end of this list. In fact, I think this is the least expensive amongst all the vehicles here.
good
With
catch.
the right there with the Nissan Sentra, but it's still a relatively inexpensive vehicle. So
So second least expensive.
yeah, second least expensive. Honestly, for the people that I know that have owned Elantras, especially second and third generation ones, they seem to be pretty solid cars, but keep this in mind.
All right, number 4, Nissan Pathfinder, another Nissan, 7,558 over 10 years, one recall. The new Pathfinder is good.
It's really good. I love that new 9-speed.
Yeah,
And
they got rid of the CVT, which was
Thank
an
God.
issue. But maybe because they're going back 10 years, maybe we're looking
That's
at
exactly
the
what
previous generation here.
Right, and maybe that recall is the Jatco issue
Yeah.
or something like that. But, I mean, if you're going back 10 years, that goes back to the model that I had, which is third generation. Nissan Pathfinder has been through many different generations since its initial small wheel-based basic truck platform, and it's gone from solid rear axle to independent, back to solid, back to independent. It's gone from having a frame to no frame to a frame again, and then it's gone to basically a station wagon, and now its current version, which has been around for about 2 years now. I remember you went to that event, right?
Yeah.
And the current version, we all agree, is really good. It's probably one of Nissan's best models. I really hope that they take that 9-speed and it's trickled down and it actually shows up in some of their other vehicles because they could really use them. But regardless, they're saying $7,558 over the course of 10 years for maintenance costs.
So we didn't go through these because we should have. But
But that's the thing.
The recall was a broken weld on seatbelts. That was a recall.
Oh, okay.
So it gave us the recall. So I'll kind of go through these and I'll just give you the.
Okay, while you're doing that, we could just kind of go into the next one, though.
Okay. The Sorento.
Yeah, the Kia Sorento is actually more expensive, and that is $7,953 over the 10 years. And there's also one recall on the Sorento as well.
Trailer hitch harness fire hazard.
Yes, and guess who else has that same recall?
You do.
I do.
I know,
Yes,
for your Santa Cruz.
Yeah, and that recall, guys, you know what they do? They bring you in there. There's one of three things they'll do. They'll either unplug the wiring harness, literally unplug it, which is, I believe, what they did with mine, or they'll actually pull the fuse for it, which I believe they've done with others. And in some cases, they won't do a damn thing. It really does depend on the dealership and also the type of harness you have. So, same thing with the Sorento. It's the same setup as it is, with, obviously, with other Hyundai products. And I can tell you that that's not a really big concern, although they did consider it a fire risk because I think one of them arced. No major fires from what I gather. The next one is, and it's basically number one. I guess it's number two. Sorry, there's a number one next to it. But the Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid.
Yeah, that one was the recall, was one recall, but this is a serious one.
Yes.
It's electrical short causing engine shutdown. That's a bad one.
Yeah, and it was like immediate shutdown. There was also a question of fire risk, although that was addressed. That was one of the few times that we actually went to the manufacturer directly because there was a large contingent of people online that reached out to us and asked them about it because there was no statement, and they made a statement the day later. But the Pacifica Hybrid did have that issue where, it would just shut down. Fortunately, that has been taken care of. However, over the course of 10 years, which once again, it hasn't been around quite 10 years, $10,620 for 10 years maintenance.
And by the way, this maintenance is according to Car Edge.
Okay.
So that's where that is coming from.
Yeah, there's like three different things that they pulled.
Right,
Car Edge.
Yep.
And
then they also had Repair Pal talking about average yearly maintenance.
Yeah, and Repair Pal, by the way, I've actually gone by them and used them before. They've been pretty damn accurate, to be fair.
And they also had worst year. But the interesting thing here is the Jeep Wrangler. Remember, it had 5 recalls.
Yeah.
Get this: electrical system,
Yeah.
engine, powertrain, fuel system.
Yes,
pretty much.
we know that one. We know that one.
Pretty much anything that'll leave your vehicle
Stranded
on the side of the
mountain,
road.
yeah.
Yeah, that's not grand.
So to finish up on the Pacifica Hybrid, by the way, the only vehicle in its class in the United States that's a PHEV. Nobody else is building a plug-in hybrid minivan, which I think is a miss. And they were way ahead of the curve. And, good on them for doing that. But unfortunately, not the most, not the cheapest thing to run over 10 years at least.
And then the last one is a Chevy Bolt EUV. And I'll tell you, I've got the recall. One, electrical shorts causing engine shutdown.
Okay.
No, sorry, that's a Pacifica.
Yeah, there was. That sounds
this
should be the same as the regular Bolt.
Yeah, this is a little. I have to.
So while you're
here it is. Seatbelt pretensioner can cause a fire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that which has been taken care of, from what I gather, there is no maintenance cost on this. I don't know why they put this on the list this way, but anyway, regardless, the vehicle itself. Now, I have not driven the EUV. I've sat in it, but I haven't actually driven it. But from what I've been told, basically, it's just like a chubbier, more roomy, more usable Chevy Bolt. And it may come back as well.
I think it's a little bit taller.
It's wider too, I believe, and it's longer.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of a bigger boot.
Yeah. It's almost a crossover, but without all-wheel drive.
Right, front-wheel drive only.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, putting this on the very top of the list without actually giving any other specifics is kind of weird. But nonetheless, there you have it. We've given you basically the most reliable and perhaps the least reliable vehicles that you can buy in the United States.
Hey, so Tommy and I, before we wrap this up,
Yeah.
we're talking about two things that are head scratchers, two cars, and I think I agree with them. So why can't you get a Maverick as an all-wheel drive hybrid, and why can't you get a Prius as an all-wheel drive hybrid? So the Prius, no, plug-in. So the Prius plug-in only comes in front-wheel drive.
Yeah, so I know the reason behind that.
Right, because of the battery.
Yeah, it's huge.
And the same issue with the you can get an Escape hybrid, which the Maverick is based on, but you can't get the Maverick hybrid with all-wheel drive.
Yeah, Ford has one word reason for that. Packaging, according to them, packaging.
But if you can do it in the Escape,
yes, but it's not the same vehicle.
I just feel like we're getting short. I just feel like it's silly. You know what I'd love to know? Here's what I'd love to know.
Please.
How many Ford or Chevy or Ram or whatever pickup trucks in Florida are sold as all-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive? Because that's the rationale, right? The rationale is you don't need it, so why? But I think people want all-wheel drive.
Well, especially
even in places like Florida where it never snows.
It never snows, but you get torrential rain and things are getting worse. So maybe you actually could use all-wheel drive. You know, you guys, the truth behind why I didn't buy a Ford Maverick.
Yeah,
there's the truth. Had they made a Ford Maverick with all-wheel drive, that was the hybrid. Even if it got slightly less mileage, which is what I would have expected, I would have bought that vehicle.
And why is
brilliant?
And why isn't Santa Cruz taking advantage of that?
Oh my God! Why aren't they? Because
because they do the hybrid.
They got the Tucson.
Right?
And they have a PHEV.
Right. And why aren't they doing that with the Santa Cruz?
I don't know. I once again, I think that some of it has to do with during COVID, all of the issues with parts and everything else has slowed everybody down and made it very difficult for them to transition to these new things. That's my guess.
Yeah, I know. You know what? They're too busy getting rid of buttons and switches to actually think about what makes sense.
I think Hyundai may learn their lesson soon enough, because if they keep doing that, they're going to go the direction of Volkswagen.
Everybody, right?
Everybody's doing that.
Yeah, they're too
Let's
busy.
Let's just put everything on a screen. Oh, if the screen fails, I guess you're screwed.
We just had the Canyon AT4X here, and I did it's up on all TFL.
Yeah.
I did the solo. I'll talk about this too. I did the solo review where I take the vehicle, drive it up to 11,000 feet, and then drive it off-road by myself to like 12,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a pretty hard trail, but it doesn't look hard when you're filming it yourself, because the camera flattens everything out. You can make easy trails look hard, and you can make hard trails look easy.
Especially at high elevation. People don't know how hard that is.
Right. And so, like I'm breathing super hard in this video, and everybody's like, Roman, you need a cardiologist. So first of all, have you ever been to 11,000 feet above sea level?
Especially when you have to hang out there and simply do something as simple as get out and walk around and then grab a camera and drag it around. It sucks, and you breathe heavy. Hell, we're at high elevation right here.
Yeah, but that's twice as high as we are.
Exactly.
Yeah, so up there you're down 30% oxygen, and I think people don't understand just how hard that is. And the other part is I'm nervous. I'm filming it by myself, so I can't express that in the video, but I'm trying to not say which I'm saying too much, of course.
Oh, the ums and ers, yeah.
Yeah, for 27 minutes. So all that combined, trying to think of all my thoughts and trying to bring them out in a logical manner, and it all leads to a rapid heart rate.
Yes, that happens to me too. I go to events, and I love it when it was like, somebody should be losing some weight and going jogging and more often. And usually it's some 700-pound jackass.
Yeah, somebody told me I should need to see a cardiologist.
Yeah,
thank you. I appreciate that.
Good help.
Hey, have you tried Ironman triathlon? I've done a few of those. Anyway.
Yeah, he has, honestly.
Sorry.
But I do boxing, by the way.
But the reason I said that is because one of my critiques of the vehicle is that Chevy got rid of the light switch. So now the
That was
light.
ridiculous.
And I said it was a stock, and they're right. It wasn't a stock. It was a little round knob.
Yeah, that's a turning knob.
But they've put it into the screen, and everybody's like, "Hey, if it's automatic, I never touched that." And I'm like, "I don't think so, dude. I think I touched that thing quite a bit for all kinds of different reasons."
Yep.
You know, like. First of all, let's be clear about this. Automatic brights rarely work.
I don't like automatic brights at all. I like to
They-
still do it myself.
Yeah, they blind people, or they come off and on at the wrong time.
Yeah, I've seen that happen too.
So now you have no way of manually controlling that. You got to go into the screen
Right.
to switch from bright to non-bright.
Yeah, and you really have to. I think you have to go into three different. One, two,
Yeah, they put it
three.
up top. It's up there.
Is it up top? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But if the screen fails, what do you do?
Which there's
no hard
We
button.
have somebody here at the office with the Colorado.
And they've had some issues too.
With the
Surprise,
screen.
surprise. Yes, the screen, among other things.
So like, I think like mission critical things like lights should always be a knob,
A hard button that can be activated by the driver if needed.
Right.
Yes.
And so so maybe 90% of the time you don't need it, but the one time that you do need it and you can't access it, you're going to be pretty upset.
I agree 100%.
All right, Nathan. Well, we've wasted about an hour and 15 minutes.
Yes, but we
hopefully,
did go through
of your
both
time.
lists, and we managed to stay on track for most of the time, so you're welcome.
Yeah, you guys critique us saying we don't stay on track. Well, that was whatever that was. 16.
Yeah, you kept your rants down to very short ones this time. But I have some great ones for
That's
next
a
time.
spicy hat you're wearing.
It is a spicy hat, isn't it? I think it's fresh and tubular. It looks turbo. Yeah, I brought them all back.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and we shall see you next time.
Have
Ciao.
a fly weekend.
Moist. That's the word you don't want to say.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Bye.